精英教育，点石成金。
Hello, my name is Catherine, and I would like to share with you some similarities that I experienced living in the two countries with the largest populations in the world. Of course, I am talking about India and China. So I'm gonna really just focus on some social, cultural similarities I noticed between the two countries. Of course, there are many differences, but I'm just going to be talking about the similarities that I experienced as an American living in both countries. So I previously lived in India, in Bangalore, which is located in the south. However, during my time there, I traveled all over India, North India, everywhere. And then in China, I lived in two cities. I lived in Suzhou in Jiangsu province, and I also lived in Shanghai. And again, same with China, I did a lot of traveling all over the country. So the first similarity I want to talk about is actually the most common one, or the most, how should I say it? The most obvious one is the population size. So actually, in both countries, I never really felt super crowded or anything like that. The only time that I actually felt the experience of living in a country with a billion people, over a billion people, was when doing kind of the small, mundane tasks. For example, grocery shopping. That's where I really felt it. And the reason for that is when you finish your grocery shopping and you go get in line, the queuing culture of China and India is very different from the queuing culture of America. In the United States, when we get in line to pay, we leave very large spaces between each person because I think in our culture, we value personal space a lot. In India and China, there's not a lot of personal space just because of there's so many people. So when I would get in line, I would get in line like an American, so I would leave a huge space between the people, and people would regularly like get in front of me, and it took me a while to realize that it wasn't that they were cutting me and trying to be rude, just that in both China and India, they don't leave a lot of space between each person when you're in line to pay. Oftentimes, you can actually even feel the person right behind you. That was very uncomfortable for me at the beginning, and then I got used to it. And I actually also learned to do that as well, which was very difficult for me in the beginning. So you really feel like there's a competition for space in both countries, particularly, like I said, in those like mundane things like grocery shopping. The second thing that is very similar between the two countries that I experienced is related to queuing culture and lines, and that is not really having a line. So in both India and China, when you're getting on the bus or getting on the metro, people will kind of stand in a line a little bit, but as soon as the doors open, the line is gone and everybody like gets in front of each other. Everyone is like what we call in America cutting in line to get in. So that's very different from the kind of culture we have where I grew up in America, where if there's an orderly line, one person goes in first, and it's very orderly like that. But with both China and India, although sometimes there would be like an orderly line, like I said, as soon as the doors open, that line does not matter and everybody just rushes to get in, cutting each other. So that was another difference that I had to get used to. So you have to be a little competitive for space and to be able to actually get in. And sometimes that requires, especially like in the morning commutes for when people are getting to work or back from work, you have to be a little aggressive and also understand that if somebody pushes you, it's not because they want to, be aggressive to you specifically. They're just trying to get in, and it's competition for space. The third similarity between the two countries that's a little bit more social, cultural, I think, has to do with getting to know different people. So in America, we have, in our culture, we have some kind of rules that we follow where we don't ask personal questions. For example, like, how much do you make at your job? But I found that in both India and China, this question is not considered rude. So it would be very common for me to meet a new person, you know, and some of their getting to know you questions would be like, how much do you make at your job? And, you know, as an American, we would never ask that as a getting to know you question. But I found through my experience that in both India and China, this was an acceptable question where people would be like, okay, where are you from? What are you doing here? How much do you make? You know? So that was another interesting kind of cultural difference that took me a while to get used to. But once you get used to it, you just get used to it. And now that I'm back in America, sometimes I want to ask this question as well. And I need to remind myself that that's in America, it's considered a very rude question. And the last similarity I want to talk about is the hospitality in both countries. So as I stated earlier, I did a lot of traveling, both when I was in India and when I was in China. And I found that in America, we do a lot of kind of surface level kindness, like we greet people a lot, strangers, like how's your day going, things like that. But as far as genuine like acts of kindness, Americans kind of tend to keep to themselves. And I know through my travels, I noticed a little bit of a difference. So India was much more obvious. I mean, if they would always come up to me, you know, strangers, and, you know, offer me food, offer, you know, water. Even if I didn't need it, they were just very, very kind and very welcoming. And I actually noticed that not as much in China, but in some instances, in some of my travels, it was a little bit similar where people, now in China, people usually keep to themselves. They don't greet strangers. They don't do anything like that. But they would be very welcoming in the sense of, oh, you're here visiting, let me show you the food. You know, do you want to try this? Have you tried this food from this city that comes from this city? Let me take you there. And I thought, you know, that was, although there are differences in the approaches of the two countries, that was another similarity that I noticed. I think I'll do another video talking about the differences because there's probably more differences between China and India, but those were the 4 similarities that I wanted to talk about. Thank you.